first. And this one, me and Zach and Todd watched. So Adam, I think, will probably stick around and listen. Yeah. All right. So this one is Blue Moon, the latest and not the only film from Richard Linklater coming out in 2025. So let's talk about Blue Moon. This one is, like I said, directed by Richard Linklater. It stars Ethan Hawke in another star-studded cast. Ethan Hawke, Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, Andrew Scott. I felt like there were some other familiar faces, but I can't find their names right now that pop up. This is a very this is a Todd movie because it's a one scene, one location movie, which Linklater is not new to, as there was because he did Tape, right, Todd? Yeah. So like this isn't his first go around at these real claustrophobic one location movies. But Blue Moon is interesting because it's also about real people, and he doesn't do that very often. This centers around Lorenz Hart, who is played by Ethan Hawke, real life lyricist in the famous duo of Rodgers and Hart, and he used to write music with Richard Rodgers. Rodgers would write the orchestration, Hart would write the lyrics. Rodgers became known much later for his work with Rodgers and Hammerstein, and this is about the start of that partnership and the first musical they wrote together, which was Oklahoma, and the reaction of Lorenz Hart and how he takes the news or the realization of the fact that Rodgers' best work is as soon as he left working for him. I think it's interesting that Springsteen and Blue Moon came out on the same day, because I feel like they're kind of related in some ways, because you're looking at artists at two different points of their life. Springsteen was looking at, his like jumping off point and him getting real introspective and thinking about who he is through his music, while Lorenz Hart is realizing he might be getting near the end and his best days are behind him, and his partner is kind of leaving him, but also deeply cares about him. This movie is all about Hart, and it's all about Ethan Hawke, and Ethan Hawke sells this movie like none other. This might be Ethan Hawke's best performance as Lorenz Hart. He just owns this movie, and every moment of it, there's maybe like 1 or 2 minutes where he's not on screen, because he is the movie, and the persona he brings to this role is outstanding. I just absolutely loved everything he had going on. The chemistry he has with Bobby Cannavale as his bartender, the chemistry he has with Andrew Scott as his former partner, potentially continuing partner, Richard Rodgers. The persona he brings in this larger than life yet diminutive character that Ethan Hawke is able to play here, I just fell in love with from the first moment. The dialogue is so good, it's so witty, it's so sharp, which you have to have if your main character is a lyricist who writes words for a living, and it sells that perfectly. You have a lot of random little moments where you have other important or noteworthy people pop up. Now, did all this happen in one night? Probably not, but it's cool to think that all of it could have happened as he interacts with like E.B. White and George Roy Hill and a very young Stephen Sondheim. I think it was Stephen Sondheim. I think it was Stephen Sondheim, right? Yeah. So this movie, you just get to sit and watch these characters talk, and because of the brilliance of Ethan Hawke, you just fall in love with everything that's going on. The one downside, I didn't think Margaret Qualley was right for the role. She fits the look, and then all I could think as soon as she started talking is I thought of her fast talking detective in Honey Don't, and that persona. It just didn't feel right for the role she was trying to portray. I don't know. Margaret Qualley's an interesting actress, and like she was brilliant in the substance, but I feel like she sometimes gets in her own way at times, and instead of just letting the character come to her, she like goes and grabs it. And I felt like she kind of did a little bit of that here. I don't know. I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. It's a tour de force performance from Ethan Hawke. Same weekend, I watched two of my favorite performances of the year. First from Jeremy Allen White and Springsteen, and then Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon. Just completely blown away by it. And as this one sits with me, it might jump up to 4 stars because I think he's that good, and just the richness of everything that's going on here is that good. So that's my thoughts on Blue Moon. Todd, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, this is Rick doing things he hasn't done in a while and making a movie that doesn't really feel like anything he's done necessarily. He doesn't do like that far back a period pieces very often. He did like the Newton Boys, I think, but I mean, other than that, like he doesn't really do this kind of thing. And it pretty much takes place in real time, and it's just totally reliant on the lead's ability to engage the audience, his audience in the bar, and the audience watching the movie. The entire thing is just Hawke being magnetic, and it's certainly the most difficult role he's ever played, and he nails it. To me, I was trying to think like who would have played this role otherwise, and I was like, this feels like a Peter O'Toole role or something, or like or maybe Gary Oldman. There's actually a bit of Mank in this. It's written by Robert Kaplow. He wrote the novel of Me and Orson Welles, which Linklater also put on screen. So I guess maybe that was the connection why he was drawn to this material. It's an interesting movie. I was into it the whole time, but you really do have to manage your expectations because this is not. There's like almost no Rick in this. Like I mean, other than it being strictly conversation, they're like there's a whole bit about them, the best and worst parts of Casablanca, and there's a part where Hart is like super famous, but nobody knows any of his stuff, or like at least young people don't, or whatever. I mean, like there's a lot of stuff like that. They're just like side conversations, but it all sort of like builds into the same story. I like how the opening of the movie had a quote or two quotes. It was like something to the effect of like Hart is the life of the party always, and then the other person said he's like the saddest man alive, and like that really describes that character well. It's a really really tricky role, and something that Ethan Hawke just would never have touched. Like I feel like 20 years ago, he's always Ethan Hawke. There's not an ounce of Ethan Hawke in this. But the movie goes from being like exciting in the beginning when you just like are feeling the liveliness of the character to being like almost like sexy at some point, and then it's just sad. But it does so with a tenderness that only Linklater is able to do. Like I mean, he really shines through, and just how careful he treats this material. The movie is kind of slight. I mean, it is just a vehicle for Ethan Hawke, but I mean, it works. It's sort of beautiful, but it also wastes this like really interesting character of Richard Rodgers, because I think Andrew Scott brought something really cool to that role. It just never really expands on it. He just is sort of there for a couple of scenes like throughout. I like the movie. I don't think it's great, but it isn't really trying to be great. I feel like because it is sort of slight. It's just fascinating that Rick has another show business movie coming out in a few weeks. His career is completely unpredictable, and Ethan Hawke is good enough that he's going to get his first ever Best Actor nomination. And I think if the studio does it right, like he could put up a fight for the win, because I mean it is that much of like a Philip Seymour Hoffman and Capote type of departure from what you expect from him. But as a movie, 3 stars. Ethan Hawke, 4 stars.
All right. So I'm at 3.5. Todd's at 3. Zach, where are you at with Blue Moon?
Yeah, so I'd never really heard of Lorenz Hart before this movie. Most people are familiar with Rodgers and Hammerstein because of all the great musicals they've done and the great partnership that they had. And so in some ways, this movie it reminded me of some other movies. It reminded me a little bit of Amadeus, in the sort of envy of someone else who is replacing a great musician. It reminded me a little bit of the first like 30 minutes of $1 Million Baby, you know, in that movie, how like Clint is Anthony Mackie's trainer, but Anthony Mackie wants to move on to bigger and better things. And obviously he's this prodigious genius boxer. And so he abandons Clint, and Clint is a little bit conflicted about it, right? Which is essentially how Ethan Hawke feels in this movie. On the one hand, he says in a candid exchange that he thinks Richard Rodgers is a genius. He acknowledges that, but he thinks that Hammerstein leaves much to be desired as his replacement. And I love that he keeps referring to Oklahoma as Oklahoma exclamation point. I mean, there's a derisiveness about it, which was my little bit of reluctance going into this movie. I thought that this was going to be a very hagiographic sort of, let's look at the great, songwriters of the classical era. This is a movie where, frankly, Lorenz Tate shits on Rodgers and Hammerstein quite
Lorenz
often
Hart.
in this movie. What did I say? Lorenz Tate, great actor, of course. Lorenz Hart, excuse me. Yes, you guys are right. Ethan Hawke is tremendous in this movie. The camera does a lot of work to make him look about 4'10", and that comb-over is doing a lot of work as well. But this is a movie that is very verbal. This is a movie that it recalls the era when movies were much more, again, literary based, had much more urbane, witty dialogue. It also recalls an era when songwriters were really considered artists. I thought about this after the movie. I mean, what songwriters today are truly considered geniuses? Taylor Swift, she's probably the closest one we have, and she is a great songwriter, but I also think that people sometimes use her lyrics ironically. I mean, this guy, Lorenz Hart, was a literary genius. And so there are some really nice exchanges with him in the movie, with E.B. White, who's a nice kind of side character in the movie. Yes, there's sort of a who's who E.L. Doctorow sort of ragtime sort of thing where he interacts with a lot of people from the era. And you know what? I mean, this movie was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I loved being a part of this literary world. I was reminded of like Mrs. Parker and the Vicious Circle and some of those movies that are really set in that era. And again, whether you love the movie or not, how remarkable is it that you at least get to, rub noses and sit at the same table, at the same bar stool at this point with someone prodigious in not only his, literary output of lyrics, but also his, urbane wit. I mean, there's several times this movie that he has just great one-liners throughout. And this is, I think, a really, really well done screenplay. I disagree with Terry. I thought Margaret Qualley was great. I would dare say this is her best film performance. I think she gives a great monologue toward the end of the movie that is full of heart and depth and vulnerability, and you can understand what the attraction is, even if it's not necessarily a sexual attraction, between her and the Ethan Hawke character. I loved spending time with these people. I love movies that are about self-destructive people who, are cynical and bitter about the world and jaded. I was reminded a little bit that this is essentially like the Apollo 13 of great music partnerships, because, hey, if Ron Howard wanted to make a movie about Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, he could have. If Richard Linklater wanted to make a movie about Rodgers and Hammerstein, he could have. This is a movie about failure. This is a movie about someone who is bitter and jaded and disgusted at himself. And I'm here for it. And I love movies like that. So I'm at a high 3.5 stars. The only thing that holds me back from a 4 stars is that I don't necessarily know if I love the whole idea of enclosing it just to that, this hour and 40 minutes at the bar. I would have lived with this character a little bit longer. I would have done an Inside Llewyn Davis sort of thing where I would have watched this character over several weeks, over several months, that eventually culminates in his self-destruction that we see at the beginning of the movie. I don't think it's a real big problem with the movie. I just enjoyed being there for the ride. And Ethan Hawke, man, and Linklater and Cadlow, the screenwriter, awesome job. Bravo. They could have been sellouts. They could have made just a dumb populist, basically equivalent of what Oklahoma was to those audiences in 1943. They strive for something a little bit greater, a little bit sharper, a little bit more jaundiced and misanthropic, and I'm here for it. And I loved it. Awesome movie. One of my favorite Rick movies. Probably, I would say my favorite Rick movie since probably Everybody Wants Some. I loved it.
Yeah, I love all the side characters, and there's so much, there's some great supporting performance. I love Bobby Cannavale in this. Todd, you mentioned Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott's brilliant in the little bit he had, and like you said, you could have used a little more Andrew Scott, because, like you said, what he brings is really really good.
Oh yeah, that's the basis of the whole movie is his, you know, resentment of that relationship, and you only get like glimpses of it. But I mean, I feel like the couple scenes they had together were so good.
Well, and it's not even resentment as much as it is like
Sadness.
sadness. Yeah, Hart realizes that his demons are what's taking him down, yet he
Oh,
can't avoid them either.
and Rogers knows what a genius he was.
Yeah.
You know, there's a line where he says, like, he's 7 years older. I mean, this guy was some sort of mentor figure. You know, he's in large part responsible, it seems like, for the success that Rogers has to some degree. And there's a lot of mutual shared respect. There's a sadness to this movie. They talk a little bit about a collaboration that they want to do in the future. I mean, it's really like, it's like, you know, it's like Spinal Tap or something. Like, we want to continue to collaborate, but we just can't, because in terms of Hart, he is someone who is so mercurial and unpredictable, and you just can't really rely on him. Actually, it's kind of like the end of Once a little bit. I mean, they had a great partnership. It was lightning in a bottle when it lasted, but it was bound to fail at some point. And there's a real tinge of sadness to this movie, like Todd was saying, that makes it really poignant. And I don't know, like almost like Leaving Las Vegas, sort of. Like, this guy is just such a self-destructive, you know, and narcissistic too, but he's so funny and so witty. You can understand the charismatic attraction and appeal that people have to him.
And it's not like it was an unsuccessful partnership. Like, they did some great stuff together and became known together. But just he's dealing with the fact that, like I said, his demons are catching up to him. And he's also dealing with the fact that Rogers' best achievement was as soon as he broke away from him.
Yeah. Didn't you, Todd? Didn't you see the scene a little bit when Ben Sanderson is fired, and his boss is like, "Well, Ben, we'd love to have you, but you know how it is." That's essentially what Richard Rogers says in this movie. Well, Lorenz, I love you, but you know how it is, and that's kind of beautiful, I think.
Maybe, but I mean, I thought a little bit about Miles with that character. I thought a little bit about gray matter. You know, like, I mean, there's a lot of things that were brought to mind, but like, I mean, he the character is just so interesting to watch, because he does bring to life a lot of things that we have seen in the past with great characters, and I mean, the fact that it's a real guy, and I don't know what he doesn't look like him at all, but I mean, I feel like that kind of writer is exactly the way that he portrays him.
He's like a combination of Miles and Jack. Like, he's a sad sack of Miles with the undeniable likableness of Jack.
Yeah. I also thought, you said Peter O'Toole. That's not bad. I thought John Malkovich would have been awesome in this movie, like in the early 90s. I also thought a little bit about Bullets Over Broadway. Woody Allen might have made this movie like 35, 40 years ago, and it might have. Well, it might have
has the font. Like, I thought that was like an homage to Woody Allen.
Yeah, it's just the more I think about it, Terry might be right. It might be a 4-star movie. It was such an honor to just hang out with these. Like, 5 minutes of this movie, in particular, the screenplay, is so much smarter and so much better than any freaking crap that we see today. I mean, I saw the previews for this movie were absolutely ridiculous. You know, it was like the Anaconda reboot and you know, the Wicked sequel, and it's like this movie is absolutely about 2025 and the garbage that people watch, just like how the 1600 people loved Oklahoma. And you know what, more power to them, but I would much rather see a movie about this person. And I love that Linklater and Hawke agree with that statement. And yeah, more power to him. Awesome movie. And yeah, I loved it. Great movie.
Well,
right? Adam, you got to check it out.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed out. I didn't know anything about the Rogers and Hammerstein type of stuff. It's well known that I've watched a lot of their musicals. Oklahoma, not my favorite one. I prefer South Pacific, The King and I, and preferably The Sound of Music.
This movie hates Oklahoma too. Don't worry!
Good. Exclamation point. I'm more interested now. Obviously, huge fan of Ethan Hawke. I spoke on it as well. But yeah, that's exciting to hear your guys' rave love for it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll have to report back later, much later.
All right. Another one that's
Did he win Best Actor, you think?
I don't know if
can.
he can.
I think he's in the
could.
lead right now. But we
Zero
haven't.
people are going to watch this movie.
It doesn't
Well,
matter.
I mean, it's
it
Rick,
really doesn't
though.
matter. Nobody watched Capote either. I'm saying like this.
Mm.
This is in the lead right now.
I've
We
never
haven't
seen
seen
it.
Marty Supreme. That could be another Uncut Gems and get no nominations. I think this is. I think he is in the lead right now. I think he's way above Leo at this point.
Watch out for
You got to put Jeremy Allen White up there too. though.
Wilmer Mora. That's where my money's at right now.
Wagner.
I got Wagner, whatever his name is.
Wagner Mora.
Yeah, I got lots of futures on him in Vegas right now.